All right, well, good morning and welcome to this May 25th edition of Keystroke Live. My name is David Hunsinger, and today we are going to be talking about the Summarize History function in Keystroke. Remember, we have Keystroke Live every Wednesday, 10 a.m., same login information. So Summarize History is a great handy function. It's basically a way of having sales information right at your fingertips, kind of instant access without running reports. It doesn't take any time. And you do it in the Keystroke Database Manager is the way to manually do it. And I will switch over to that so I can show you. So here is Keystroke, and I am going to go into the Database Manager. And in here on the Special menu is the Summarize History function. First, before I go, I'll just show you. If I select the Inventory Database, there's a key combination, Control F5, that pulls up the summary information. If I hit that, I'm holding down Control and hitting F5 right now. I don't get anything because I haven't created any of the data yet. So if I go up to Special and Summarize History, I get a little box here with some choices, and this can be very important. One is there is the period, daily, weekly, monthly. If you select all or daily, it is creating an individual file for every day of every month. So if you do that for the period of a year or 6 months, doing daily creates a ton of files. And it may not be the best application for you because that's hard to look at when there's too much of a list. I recommend monthly for the period. That's what I do. Gives you a nice little summary, kind of one screen to look at. So I'm just going to select that. Database, inventory, customer, vendor, clerk, so you can look at the different aspects of sales and inventory and receivables for those different categories, and I'll just leave it at all. And then if you do parent-child, you can roll the children up. You can say older files I want to move out of the way so I don't have too much of a screen. I'm just going to leave that blank. And I'm going to just say I'm going to start enter 1 period 1. That means first day of January and defaults to the current year. So I'm just going to run it for January through, and I could do it through today, but I'm just going to go through 4, and then I put in 99 so I don't have to remember that April has 30 days. So it's basically going to run it for the first 4 months of 2016. I click OK, and then it gives you, it's basically running a little command, a separate program we have out in Keystroke. So it's I'm in the tutor data directory, the what my periods are and things like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and say OK, and it kind of you don't see, it pulls up another little screen that it has run the summary data. But so now when I look at this polo shirt and hit Control F5, it pops up what I've sold for each month, current month at the top, as you see there, quantity on hand, purchases. So that's great because I've got that for that shirt. I can also look at my customer database, and if I go down here and do my Control F5, okay, so he hasn't purchased anything over those 4 months. I can also go into the Sales Manager, and if I hit this on a blank screen, Control F5, I get the totals. So I'm getting the monthly totals for everything there. So I instantly have this information at my fingertips. If I pull up a particular inventory item, say, okay, we're old enough, but I can highlight it and hit Control F5, and I get information for that inventory item. I did it for 4 months. You can do it for 12 months. What happens when you run that and I am going to switch to my Windows Explorer, and in here I am going to go into my tutor data directory, and then so I'm using the tutor data just because if you've got a lot of data, it can take some time to crunch through. Creates a subdirectory called Summary, and if I look in there, there's a bunch of files. C for customer, I for inventory, K for clerk, V for vendor, M for monthly, and then the date in year, month, day format, 16/0/31. So it's just created those files. So when I'm hitting Control F5, it's just reading these files. It's not calculating anything. So it can be very, very quick. Now, don't get confused between, let me get back to my keystroke. Don't get confused between summarize history, that's right here where I hit Control F5, and customer history. And if let's see if I can find, so if I hit Control F5 here, that's the summary data. Those are the files out in that summary subdirectory we're looking at. If I click on this show history, it's going back through the transaction files and calculating what history Barney's Liquor Store has. So this customer history is controlled in the configuration manager under settings and sales transactions, and if I look at just invoices, and now I just have to remember where it is. It's right here in the sales invoices. So I have it turned off, which makes Keystroke a lot faster because when you enter a customer, it's not automatically calculating it. So I could come in here and say minus 6M. So that's saying it's going to go back 6 months, and I can show it on the screen. I can warn if a transaction is existing or exists. But if I've got a lot of data and a lot of customers, it can slow things down a little bit because every time you enter a customer, it's calculating that. So if I just select OK there and F10 to save that and go back to Sales Manager, and let's see if I select Barney's now and do Show History, I get some transactions because I have it turned on. This is customer history. Remember, it's accessing the transaction files as opposed to the summarize history. I'm hitting Control F5, pops up the Barney's Liquor Store's totals. And remember, I can also, if I just clear this transaction, just on a blank screen, if I hit Control F5, it gives me grand totals for the month. So I often use this in our specialized business solution sales. I can hit Control F5 and say, oh yeah, this is about what we make for each month. And again, you can also do it by clerk, so you can see which clerks are doing sales. That would be, I could just hit F12, go to clerk, and then here I've got clerk number 1. I hit Control F5, and it shows me Andy's sales by month. So a lot you can look at. Now, I kind of have an end-of-month procedure where I make a backup, I run summarize history, I do a few other things to kind of clean up some things here and there. So I have just kind of a checklist of here's everything I do at the end of the month. You could also put this on a task scheduler to automatically run, and I'll see if I can show you how I did that real quick. I am going to go to my Windows Task Scheduler, and this is I just select the Windows Start menu and then Administrative Tools and Task Scheduler. You can search for Task Scheduler and you'll find it. What's important here, and I know this is probably a little bit small on the screen, you select the TAS Schedule Library, Microsoft, and then Windows. You have to do that or it won't work. Then I can come over here to the tasks, right-click it, and say Create New Task, and I'll just call it Keystroke Summary, and I can say whether a user is logged in. There's some choices there. My trigger is, I'm just going to say I have a new trigger, and I want to run it monthly. It's pretty simple. I want to run it monthly. I'm going to do all months. Day, I'm going to do it on the last day of the month. And my time, let's do it at 11:30 p.m. So that's when my task is going to run. Now, action, new, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a program. I'm going to browse, and I could plug in everything. I've created a little batch file that runs it for the month. And let's see if I can show you what this looks like. Just have to get the right item shared. And this is just, I'm running summary.exe out of the Keystroke directory for the tutor data, monthly period. I don't select the database, so it does all of them. Start equals 1, end equals m, that's the nearest midnight. I'm running it on the last day. So if my scheduler gets delayed a little bit and it runs on the 1st, I'm okay. It'll still go back to the midnight. So you don't have to do the batch file. I could put this exact command line. I could just copy this and go back to my task scheduler. If I cancel out of here, and say new, run a program, I could put C:\KS8 / and paste in that command line. So I could just do that. There's a bunch of things you can do, but I like doing the batch file. That gives me some control, and so that would just be, I'd be running summary.bat is what I called it. And okay, and so now this is set, ready to go. I've never run it, but it will run on the 31st of the month automatically, and so that that information gets generated. And if I switch back to my Windows Explorer, so you see now we've got all these different files, 4 monthly files for each of the 4 databases for 2016. I could do weekly, and so 4 databases, about 4 weeks a month, about 4 months, so that's 16 times 4, that's about 64, or is that right? Somewhere in there, files it would create. So you can move these files out, or if you don't like what you did, you can delete them and regenerate them. One thing you have to watch out for, and I'm going to go back to Keystroke here, is, and I'm just going to get out of my query here, go back to my customer, and if I pull up Barney here again, Control F5, you see there's an amount due here. If you calculate that month by month, then that will actually be the amount due that customer had at the end of each month. If I calculate January, February, March, and April here in May, if they might have had $500 due at the end of January, and then they paid $210 off in February, so it's showing me, $290 that is due because all of that was wrapped up before I actually calculated. So the sales, the total, the net charge, that'll be all correct. The amount due could be a little different because it has changed from latter transactions. So the January amount due maybe has changed because of transactions in February. If you ran it right at the end of the January, you wouldn't see those February transactions. But if you run it in May, those February transactions have been applied to January, and so the amount due can be a little bit off. But it's still a really good guideline, and a lot of times you can tell with the customer, okay, they've been charging $500 and paying off $500 every month, so they're doing a good job at keeping up with their payments that are owed to you. And it's a great, quick, easy way of looking at sales data at your fingertips. We decided to do this. Because I just got a message that my connection is a little slow, but hopefully you can hear me okay. But this is here just so it's quick, easy, and fast information to have right at your fingertips. I'm doing this Keystroke Live because I think a lot of people don't utilize it, and it really is a nice, handy feature. You can get it set up going in the background. You can just have a method to do it every month, and so it can be very, very valuable to people. So with that, if I go back to my PowerPoint, I've showed you how to run it manually, how you can do it. So thanks for listening to me. Are there any questions? Uh-oh. Hello, is anybody? I got a message, my connection is lost.
Hey, Dave, our audio and video is pretty bad. Now you're back.
Okay, now it said it has reestablished. So luckily, it got bad right there when I was finished, but are there any questions?
I assume there's security levels for what clerks should see what?
Yeah, you can set security levels. And then there's a security for looking at the summarized history. So you can turn that on and off. You can also just not run it for clerks if you don't want them looking at that. So there's different things you can do there to keep people out. It's a lot along the same lines as running reports because it's basically that report information.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like our audio and video is very choppy again, Dave.
All right. Well, then I will sign off. Did you hear that, Nick? Yeah, we've been having some connection problems. I think I hear people now. But I will sign off. Thank you for attending, and tune